Okay. Yes. Okay. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you to this client interaction today, and I would also like to thank you for taking out the time out, out of your busy schedules, to be with us, here today. So I'm Manish Mathur. I'm the country manager for Doha Bank in India, and the subject that we wanted to discuss today was the bilateral and synergistic opportunities that we have between Qatar and India. We feel it's quite a relevant topic currently because both India and Qatar are strong economies in the region and have enjoyed a history of friendly relationships, marked by both commercial ties as well as people-to-people contacts. The bilateral business between the two countries has been growing. And as of 2020-21, the commercial trade between the two countries was about $9.2 billion, of which the exports from India were about 1.3 billion and imports were about $7.93 billion. So obviously, Qatar is one of the largest exporters of LNG to the world, I would say. And therefore, the key exports that Qatar has to India include LNG, LPG, chemicals, and petrochemicals. While India's exports to Qatar include cereals, copper articles, iron and steel articles, vegetables, fruits, spices, and processed food products. So the trade is obviously quite extensive, and that is also demonstrated by the fact that India is actually is one of the top three exporters as well as importers for Qatar. And actually, 50% of all the imports that India does on the LNG side are actually supplied by Qatar. So this sort of underlines the reliance or the interaction between the two countries on the trade side. The other, so on the investment side, obviously a large number of Indian corporates are also present in Qatar. As per Qatar Chamber of Commerce and Industry, there are about 6,000 companies from India which operate in Qatar, primarily in sectors like infrastructure, communications, information technology, and energy. Some of the large Indian companies, who have been present in Qatar for a long time include Larsen & Toubro, Voltas, Shapoorji Pallonji, Wipro, TCS, and Tech Mahindra. This engagement we expect will grow as there's extensive infrastructure development happening in Qatar as it prepares to host the prestigious the FIFA World Cup in 2022, and also as it implements its National Vision 2030 objective. We feel that the acknowledged competencies of India's corporate sector should offer attractive opportunities for cooperation arising out of these two events. In terms of the other side, the investors from Qatar have also been investing in India through Qatar investment authorities, other state-owned entities, and even retail investors. Basically to leverage on the attractive investment opportunities that various sectors in India offer. The recent large investments that have been made by Qatari investors into India include, investments into Swiggy and Daily Hunt, which happened in 2021. There was a large investment into Adani Transmission, about $450 million, which happened last year. And then there have been investments into Airtel Africa, about $200 million, and into Byju's for about $150 million. So it's the investments from these countries both is mutual. I think another reason why India and Qatar have actually enjoyed good relationships, I think, is also because of the cultural ties that have been there between the two countries. And one of the big drivers we feel is the presence of the Indian expat community in Qatar. There are about 700,000 Indians who are actually residing in Qatar and work there, and they comprise the largest expatriate community in Qatar. And they are engaged in a variety of professions, including medicine, engineering, education, finance, banking, and media, apart from a large number of blue-collar workers as well. So Indians which are present in Qatar are highly regarded for honesty, hard work, and contribution to the development and progress of Qatar. And I think this is a good base, which actually supports or underlies the strong relationship these two countries enjoy amongst themselves. In the backdrop of all this, and to facilitate this flow of bilateral trade and services between India and Qatar, Doha Bank, which is one of the largest private sector commercial banks in Qatar, set up a branch in India in 2014. And we now offer a full range of corporate and retail banking services, both to corporates in India as well as resident and non-resident Indians. We have 3 branches in Mumbai, Chennai, and Kochi. And the bank is committed to growing its presence and making it a much more entrenched player in the Indian market. So to delve into this, so this is just a brief update I wanted to give to set the context. But I think to delve deeper into the subject, we have the honor and privilege of having an eminent set of panelists today who will share their views on the topic for discussion. So these include His Excellency Dr. Deepak Mittal, who is the Indian ambassador to Qatar. We have Honorable Mr. Ranjan Mathai, who's the former Foreign Secretary of India and a career diplomat. And we have Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, who's an eminent personality in the field of finance and board chairman and member of some of the country's eminent organizations. So with this background, I'd just like to hand over the floor to Dr. Sitaraman, who's our CEO, who will give his introductory address as well as moderate the discussion today. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manish. You missed Mr. Chandrakant Chalanki,
Yes.
SME Chapter President as well. Thank you once again, the viewers, and what an honor to be integral part of this interesting combination of speakers. They're all eminent scholars in their own discipline. It's interesting and exciting to see we are living in a transformational world. Extraordinary set of changes and challenges we have faced in the last 1.5 years. The economic risk and the allied governance in mapping the fiscal and monetary side. The social risk, recognizing the hygiene, health factors, social distancing, ensuring safety and security for humanity is another factor. The environmental dimension again. Global warming and climate change has been a major stumbling block for the global growth itself. It's not economics anymore, it's economics in substance. That's what the world economists as well as politicians converging in substance. And precisely how the environmental risk is to be managed is also a telling story on account of the pandemic. And last but not the least, how do we ensure human risk? We have lost nearly 220 million people impacted, 4.55 million people. Really, there's no more. India itself, we have a significant impact. 17% we had vaccine administration. In global terms, vaccination is playing a big role. 34% has been administered. We have still challenges left out. It's not over. What sort of reorganization is required in our governance at a country's level, continent level, planet as a whole? How do we ensure sustainable development goals are measured, managed, and controlled, redefined in substance is an issue. From a financial service industry perspective, we have to restructure the debt. Every country across the globe has recognized debt servicing is a major stumbling block. Liquidity is a major concern. That's why globally trillions of dollars have been pumped. The monetary policy has been redefined. A fiscal framework has been realigned. Monetary and fiscal alignment has come in substance. And globally, there is enough reasons to believe post-COVID will be a different world. There are new business models getting evolved. Technology acceleration has been prolific, and there are enough reasons to believe that we can embrace technology with a positive perspective and make sure we can bring in value to humanity. In specific terms to financial service industry, we have to restructure the debts. We have to make sure remedial management is focused. Business continuity instead of business disaster. We have to necessarily set in measures to see the operational risk is minimized, business continuity is enhanced. Mapping all this risk and ensuring governance, making sure financial stability comes in. So we have taken enough measures to see globally unified approach in bringing global sustainable value creation. Not only for us today, for the future generation has to be focused in prospects. That's why a lot of lessons we have learned, a lot of measures we have ensured so far. We need to be cautious and conservative in recognizing the challenges still ahead of us. It's going to be a different game to play. It's a huge transformation in substance. To recognize this, we have to come to collaboration, global cooperations. Whatever be the spelled out sustainable development goals, we cannot eradicate extreme poverty just like that. Gender equality, or again, education for all, healthcare for all, or increasing sea level, animal extinction, carbon neutral society we have to create, perhaps even carbon negative if we have to instill in the minds of policy framework and execution to the highest level. We need to reorganize the world. We have to have global cooperation and coordination. G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20 today. Extraordinary set of convergence taking place and realignment is taking place between politics and economics. We're all witnessing all these changes. To elucidate further, we have lined up a set of discussion today, specifically focusing on Qatar and India. At the same time, we have experts. Foreign Secretary, former Foreign Secretary of India is here. Diplomat of par excellence is wherever he was, whether he was in Qatar or UK or France. And also when he was a Foreign Secretary, he has showcased what sort of measures which will show India's eminence to global governance. And that's we need to listen to him. Similarly, August 6th last year, His Excellency Indian Ambassador, Dr. Deepak Mittal joined. The 12th of August, he presented his credential. Ever since, he's been so active. We never felt he's handling the mission during this crisis. He was so people conscious, and he was there, whether it's community function or commerce function. He is there at our disposal. So humble, so simple, and enlightening the diplomacy to higher levels. And we recognize he has got enough to say what sort of a bilateral mission and bilateral is to converge to further strengthen the trade or investments, banking or finance. he is going to share his views. We also recognize India is emerging as a very strong economy in terms of global functional makeup for foreign direct investment has moved in the right direction. The market liberalization has taken place. Irrespective of the pandemic, the overall the adaptability and embracing technology has redefined every single business model within India, and again, Indians' eminence in terms of the overall fiscal management as well as the monetary policy has been profound. India's financial stability is second to none. Our foreign exchange reserve stands at over $658 billion. Our growth momentum this year, arguably the highest in global terms, 9.5%, even after subsequent revisions. So we need to understand the highlights of the Indian economy. Nobody can better demonstrate than a practicing chartered accountant, and is serving in many corporate boards across India, outside India. My good friend, Mrs. Haribhakti, is there to showcase what is in store for India. Can we achieve 5 trillion or 6 trillion? What is in store for the Indian economy, and what sort of reorganization is taking place in terms of policy framework, purely from financial perspective, financial stability perspective, we need to understand. Last but not the least, we also have to understand the dynamics of financial stability lies with the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. They're the backbone of any economy, whether it is 1930 depression, whether US economy or Japanese economy or UK economy or Indian economy, or even the Gulf states today is embarking on ensuring economic momentum comes in deeper terms for smaller and medium-sized entrepreneurship. And that's what exactly the opportunity is all about, whether it's economic acceleration or job growth or employment. We need to look at small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, especially post-pandemic, with a different perspective. Models are getting redefined, as I said earlier. So we need to understand what's happening in India as far as SME sector is concerned. On the startup side, we are second to none. We know. Now, what is the policy change we are embarking on? What sort of case studies we have witnessed of late? How do we bridge the gap between India and the Gulf states? How do we bring in more and more SMEs to the Gulf, where we can bring in cost-effective labor, cost of capital is cheaper? How do we bring in this bilateral partnership for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs? To enlighten, SME Chamber of India's president, Mr. Chandrakant Solanki, is here. Finally, I'll also connecting all these, inputs, intelligent inputs, I should say. Let us resolve what are the bilateral and synergistic opportunities between Qatar and India, and that's the enlightenment we have. All of us are in store to listen to the experts and gather from our perspective. You're a businessman or a professional, what we can learn out of their wisdom and see how we can apply for the coming days to see better prosperity to one and all. With this perspective, we have coined the session, and we have seen good excitement, over 315 direct registration, plus Facebook is on now. Ask your questions, we will answer as much as we can. Otherwise, the time is specified, 3 o'clock, the hot time, we have to end the show. With these words, let me have the great pleasure in inviting the Indian Ambassador to Qatar, His Excellency Dr. Deepak Mitchell. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone, my distinguished colleagues. Really an honor and pleasure to join you all at this wonderful webinar being organized by Doha Bank on bilateral synergies and opportunities between India and Qatar. And my honor to be in the august presence of a former Foreign Secretary and Mr. Ranjan Mathai, my boss, and also Mr. Chandrakantji and Shaileshji. Really, I just recall when Dr. Sitaraman was mentioning, time flies. It was just like the other day when I was on a similar platform last year, and we were discussing, I had just arrived, and we were discussing the opportunities. I think the ground has been laid by Mr. Manish and Dr. Sitaraman in in terms of where we stand. I will quickly go over, in the interest of the time, go over some of the things as I see, I perceive, and maybe of interest to all those who have joined today and have interest in India-Qatar economic partnership. It's been, as was said, India and Qatar do have very historical ties. Both understand each other very well, especially the people. They know how to work with each other, how to trade with each other, how to live with each other. We, as somebody mentioned here to me, we live in each other's hearts, in a sense. It is also, there's a very close relationship, which is given the strength which relationship draws, is the close chemistry between the leadership of the two countries, between His Highness, the Amir, and the Prime Minister of India. I have been personally witness to how comfortable they do feel and with the ease with which they are able to connect, even during this most challenging pandemic times over the past year, how they have been able to regularly converse over telephone and to talk about not just dealing with the challenge of the COVID, taking care of the people in each of the countries, also how to give direction as we all work towards reviving global economy and in a post-COVID world as well. And certainly they have come up with their own set of priorities and how India and Qatar can work together. As was said, that Manish put out the trade figures and the areas in which we do work and trade. Clearly, it does show that how India is the third largest trading partner for Qatar, and Qatar itself stands at 23rd position in terms of trading partnership for India globally. So it itself shows there's a very strong strength in trading with each other. Our efforts, if I may say, over these years, to summarize, have been how do we look at and diversifying our bilateral trade in one go. As was highlighted, certainly we do, Qatar participates in energy security in India, being an important source of LNG and gas to India. And India has been participating in the food security efforts of the state of Qatar, especially over the past few years. So but how do we look at it? It's the basket, as I look at it, is about 77% energy-based basket. So the effort is how do we diversify this basket further? There are strengths on both sides that can help to do that. Second is how do we move towards moving away, not just looking at it as a mere buy and sell partnership, but in a more comprehensive partnership, in a more comprehensive even interdependence, as we call it, investing in each other is also an area of focus. Now, in this regard, I must appreciate that there have been some positive steps, including a facilitative mechanism to put in place to realize these efforts. One of them has been how do we have more efficient banking channels between two countries. Doha Bank has been leading that effort from the front, having 2 branches opened up in India, and as we heard, offering a wide range of services. We also had Qatar National Bank starting its branch in India over the past year. Plus, we have a stronger logistics, which we have seen more direct shipping lines happening between west coast of India and the Hamad port here in Qatar, which has helped to bring in more reasonable, bring down costs of logistics. Challenges do remain, but this is an effort in terms of how do we improve the trade between two. Plus, at a level, there have been effort to develop more closer coordination, cooperation between various entities between India and Qatar. For instance, at a G2G level, government to government level, effort is to set up joint working group on trade and commerce, which has been established between the 2 commerce ministries to look at regularly review what's happening in the trade front, the challenges which does come. Now, the steps are afoot to set up a joint business council, because at the end of the day, it's the businesses on both sides who understand and do the trade. So the efforts are afoot to set up a joint business council between India and Qatar. Besides that, we have, of course, as I mentioned by Manish, is a strong presence of the Indian businesses, over 6,000 Indian businesses which are registered with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry here in Qatar. They have themselves organized into a very stronger and revived Indian business forum here, a professionals forum here in Qatar, so as to put together the efforts, the energy of over 700,000 Indians who have made Qatar as a second home, and to facilitate bilateral trade and economic partnership. Besides that, the effort is also to look at, as I said, comprehensive partnerships. But a comprehensive partnership is to bring ties between the Invest India. One is the leading trading investment arms of the Government of India, along with Invest Qatar. They are already in discussion to set up cooperation opportunities between Invest Qatar and Invest India. As also is, we know, Qatar Free Zone, Qatar Financial Center, QFC, and the Indian Financial Service and Center here in Gift City in Gujarat. So these are kind of centers which their collaboration helps to bring in complementarity and synergy between the two sides. Plus, as I said, as a leadership level, they have decided to set up two task forces. One is a joint task force on investments, and second is a joint task force on energy. And this helps to work, identify what are the win-win propositions, and develop a future agenda of a comprehensive partnership. We have seen successes coming up with these efforts. Mr. Manish brought out how we have seen some investments undertaken by Qatar Investment Authority and others into whether it's in electricity, renewables, or education, or startups out there. And certainly we see a very strong feeling here in Qatar in terms of looking east and looking towards India. There is an recognition that we have seen a lot of opportunities which are emerging in India, especially as Dr. Sitaraman mentioned, how India has entered into, I may use a phrase, into a phase 2 of liberalization processes on kind of things, which is manifest in how India has jumped the ranks of ease of doing business. 79 ranks we have jumped over the last 5 years, and today's standard 63 in the World Bank's rank. But we are confident that this will continue to improve, because there are a lot of measures which have been taken to make doing the business as easy as possible. Second, we heard about financial stability, how India provides financial stability, and we hear more from Shailesh about it. We have seen that manifest the measures in terms of strong FDI inflows into India. Even during the pandemic times, how we have seen a large number of bullish trend on India globally out there, which does speak about their belief in India's story, the global belief in. We do the vaccination campaign as it rolls out, as Dr. Sitaraman mentioned, against COVID. And I think India has been no less when we have been able to now undertake more than 70% vaccination on at least for a single dose. 70% of the population is done with a single dose. And as we increase and make available more vaccines with our enhanced production capacities. So we are injecting that, in a sense, the economy in the revival of post-COVID world. And certainly parallelly taking measures, taking advantage of such challenges is to push forward the reform agenda, including through production-linked incentive schemes. We spoke about it as an MSME sector, strong MSME sector, and how this PLI scheme, which deals with 13 sectors and primarily giving a boost to MSME, the medium and small scale enterprises sector in India, with nearly $26 billion worth of support, which is expected to reach through PLI over the next 4 to 5 years. Effort being that production in India has to be zero defect and zero effect. We heard Dr. Sitaraman speaking about sustainability. That's the effort, that there should be zero effect also. And the quality, focus on a lot of quality. At the same time, how do we make it and more efficient in terms of taxation reforms, strong taxation reforms which are undertaken in India? Maybe Mr. Shailesh will focus a bit also on that for me, rather than me doing so. Plus, one thing which I always talk about here in Qatar is India's focus in terms of sustainability is also our ambitious targets for increasing the component of the renewable energy into our energy mix. And in the process is our effort in run-up to that is how India can be developed as a gas-based economy. As I said, Qatar, with its focus on a lot of focus, it is expanding its own efforts for the LNG production over the next 5 to 7 years, almost double these production capacities from Qatar. At the same time, there's an opportunity because India is moving towards a gas-based economy, where we have looking at investments of nearly $60 billion worth of infrastructure in the infrastructure development, which includes $13 billion in gas grid infrastructure, $4 billion in the LNG terminals, $17 billion in a city-based gas distribution network, and set at another 20 as a LNG as a tool for mobility, public mobility, and other ancillary industry about another $10 billion. If I look at it, this is a $60 billion kind of an energy infrastructure ambitious plan which India has, offers a lot of opportunities to Qatar from our friends and partners in Qatar to look at it, how participation in this developing India's gas infrastructure can also build those win-win partnership in terms of for Qatar also having a strong market in India, how to strengthen that further. More recently, we have seen is a very strong, again, another possibility of a monetization plan. We have a monetization pipeline, which has been announced by the government, which involves nearly a number of assets to be looked at going in for more than $82 billion of monetization plan, whether it's roads, railways, ports, power, you name it. It's a wonderful, great pipeline which has been rolled out. And in itself, $12 billion target is to monetize this current fiscal year itself. So there is an ambitious targets, and again, this opens up a lot of potential opportunities for businesses to look at India. Besides, we did hear about service sector industry in India and how we can work together to promote that service sector in a win-win proposition. I would remiss if I do not talk about, when I talk about synergies, is about how Qatar also is giving a very strong potential for our businesses from India. At the same time, there is a lot of focus of how to attract investments and partnership from India with the efforts to develop ports, seaports, free zones, and also gradually moving towards public-private partnership. A lot of a long time when Qatar has been doing is more of public investment. Now it's an effort to move towards public-private partnership. That opens up newer opportunities for Indian businesses to look towards Qatar. As I mentioned, FIFA 2022, a lot of work had already been completed, I would say, but opportunities that do present over the next year are also more in the service sector industry, which would include hospitality and related sectors. That's something which one could look at. Plus, going forward, as I was saying, Qatar has the ambitious plan for the North Field gas expansion, the North Field expansion project, which it has started. That provides partnerships, possible opportunities, economic and trade opportunities, whether it's in the materials, services, information, IT based, many other such sectors. That does open up immense opportunities, and this will continue till 2027. So if I'm looking at beyond 22, then comes the 2030, the Asian Games. Qatar has successfully won to host the Asian Games in 2030. So one can expect that related infrastructure development, as we have seen in run up to FIFA 2022, there would be, one can expect certain set of development related opportunities which will come up. Overall, if I may say, this is a very timely webinar which Doha Bank has taken the initiative to organize, to be able to assess the opportunities, the synergies which are there, provide an opportunity. And looking at it, one of the aspects which I have been talking here is about looking at in the new world, COVID world, is how do we look at health security as a very important element out there. Because this is one sector where I've always seen that we do in India believe that India is the pharmacy of the world. We have been contributing even pre-COVID and COVID times. How do we participate in promoting health security? But when I look at Qatar, I see our participation is just 1% in this sector. So I think there is a lot of potential which needs to be looked at. The issues, we are in touch with the stakeholders in India and in Qatar, and I'm sure that can provide us more answers and work to realize the potential. Second aspect is startups, the technology. A lot of it we have seen, we have adopted technology as a big tool to for our economic recoveries and to give boost to our economies. So, and India has proven to be a very big, as the world's third largest startup ecosystem globally. So that is another potential sector area where when Qatar looks at its opportunities, where it needs to find answers to some of the, whether it's a fintech, agri-tech, sports tech, many of these things can be something, I'm sure, wonderful startup ecosystem, it does exist in India, can be tapped into, and synergies and complementarities can be worked. I've been talking to Qatar Development Bank. They see very positive on this at the same time. Well, if you give me time, I will continue to go on. This is my job to do so, but I know with the interest of time and with so many luminaries and distinguished speakers already lined up, I want to once again thank Doha Bank for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and to share this platform with such distinguished colleagues and seniors and also the participants. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You have enlightened us. You summed up everything in relative terms within a short span. In fact, there are 4 questions during your speech, and I'm not going to ask you all these 4 questions because you already answered. The first question was, for example, they asked, what are the business opportunities that Qatar and World Cup 2022 offers? You said service sectors. You already answered it. What are the future partnerships? You explained it's not only 2022, you have 2027, and again, there are opportunities to converge on various technology, including the next question also again relating to startup, which you mentioned, what sort of fintech or agri-tech we can come together. One interesting question perhaps you can answer. How can India and Qatar, both being growth economies, contribute towards evolving situation in the region in view of the developments in Afghanistan? I thought it's for Mr. Ranjan Mathai. They ask you this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we do believe that there has been strong coordination and cooperation between India and Qatar, even on the regional developments, even around the situation in Afghanistan. There have been constant consultations between at the leadership level and a functional level. And certainly, I think there is a lot of concerns we do emanate with the current situation. India wants peace, security, stability to return to Afghanistan. And we would like to contribute. I think the immediate requirement there appears to be to be able to give that stability in terms of governance, which is representative, inclusive, as also immediate humanitarian aid assistance. I think Qatar has done tremendously well when it comes to building that humanitarian bridge between through Qatar to Afghanistan. I think how is that humanitarian bridge can be strengthened and so that there is an unhindered and unimpeded access to this humanitarian requirement. India has participated in economic development and program in Afghanistan, over $3 billion spent over past years, and stay committed to more. And I'm sure that provides ample opportunity to work, India and Qatar to also work and contributing to stability and development in the interest of the people of that country.
Excellent. Well done. Good. Let me leave you at that. And next speaker, I don't want to elucidate further, is Honorable Ranjan Mathai, former Foreign Secretary of India. A brilliant concept he's going to address. India's emerging role in global governance and the global economy. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I'm indeed honored to join this illustrious panel. Great to be back with Doha Bank and to be with Mr. Hari Bhakti and Mr. Salamke, and with my good friend and colleague, His Excellency Mr. Deepak Mittal. I must start with a caveat. I thought I was being invited because you were talking about opportunities between Qatar and India. As a former ambassador of India to Qatar, in fact, perhaps one who was present, you might say, at creation. I was there when the first gas agreement, GSP-A, was concluded. And when the first shipment took place, I was physically present at Ras Laffan. So I thought this was it. But then Mr. Sitaraman, as is his wont, he has his own ways of planning these webinars. And he asked me to speak on global governance. And I thought this is a very arcane subject. So I requested him to connect it also with global economy and global governance. So let me start with, with trying to make some kind of a definition. Now, when you talk of global governance, you are essentially getting into both fields of practice and of law. And we have somebody far more qualified to talk on law, Mr. Hari Bhakti, than I am. So I decided not to go there. I'll use the simple explanation which we use in political science, which is the system of management of global affairs, or the relationships, the rules, guidelines, norms, realities of how governments or groups of governments and even corporations interact with each other on the global stage. It is not just on sovereign issues relating to themselves and their domains, but the management of the global commons, which is an expression used to describe that part which is beyond the jurisdiction of sovereign governments. Since the Second World War, a system was put in place by the victors of that conflict, which created a certain world order and certain norms of governance, which lasted roughly till the end of the Cold War. Then a new phase began. That phase also entered into an era of change some 15 years ago with the rise of China. And right before our eyes, it is changing yet again because of the challenges to globalization which had emerged, the problems of the pandemic, and the new models of growth which have emerged. Now, the rise of China saw at its time an entirely new model of growth, and China attached to it, as it grew, models of governance. The Belt and Road Initiative is just one example of how it is creating assets, liabilities, and new realities around the world. The AIIB, the Asia Infrastructure challenge to existing global order banks, and new institutions and dialogues with different parts of the world were created. Finally, there was the challenge in the South China Sea to what was notionally and internationally accepted maritime law, the law of the sea. Now, in the last 5 years, we have also added to this churn the problems of climate change, the anti-globalization movement, and with the pandemic, I think we have come to another turning point with a new era beginning. Now, India has an emerging role in this. Why? I think it is essentially because in economic, political, military, and technological terms, we are growing. Beyond these factors of power is the concept of influence, whether you call it soft power or the ability to win minds and hearts across the world. And India is growing. It is not just growing absolutely, but it is growing relative to many of the other major centers of the world. Now, there are many important features of why this is so. It is perhaps because India understands governance at the global level to mean not monopolistic rule setting for the global commons. India's external tradition has been multilateralist, non-interventionist, and domestically we are familiar with a democratic and pluralistic approach to life. We are also a country in all stages of development and growth in one jurisdiction, from the absolute poor to the most advanced, to the highly sophisticated, to the people who have no concept of electronics, leave alone the internet age. And managing diversity has given us the capability of being a bridge, not just in our own country, but across the world. But these features all take you nowhere unless you develop in a way in which others acquire a stake in your development. And that is why I added to this India's role in the global economy, because India having a greater role in global governance depends essentially on India having a greater role in the global economy and in the management of political developments. So Dr. Sitaraman, when he and I were talking, he said, why don't we pick up on a few global developments to try and illustrate this? So I'll start with our neighborhood, and we've just heard about Afghanistan, because that is in fact the story on everybody's lips right now. Our immediate neighborhood also has Myanmar, but I leave that story for another day, because that also raises issues of global governance. The possibility of this so-called Taliban 2.0 gaining full control was seen as the beginning of perhaps a new phase in the Chinese growth, development of its global role in global governance. And this time, through the agency of Pakistan. It was also seen as creating a new center for an economic corridor between Central Asia, South Asia, East Asia, and West Asia. Now, this could well happen, but it depends on four, what I would call ifs. If the Taliban does not revert to its old style, and if it does not let even more extremism develop under its wings, and that, as we know, is a very big if, given that the TTP and the IISK have already bared their fangs. The second if is if internal differences don't lead to greater insurgency, and these insurgencies don't get external backers. There are already warning signs emerging of differences between Tajikistan and Afghanistan, and a slow change in the Russian position vis-a-vis Afghanistan. The third if is if the massive geographical and connectivity problems which had overwhelmed everyone else who tried to develop Afghanistan economically or help Afghanistan develop economically can be overcome, and hence a centralized infrastructure development start. I think this is an equally big if. And if not, if these ifs are not, there could be very big trouble ahead for both Pakistan initially and also China. And I think, therefore, global governance in India's role, and here is where Qatar can play a very big role, would be to revitalize an international effort for stabilization. We have heard about the humanitarian efforts, but beyond that, there will be a need for stabilization. India is equally seen as a benign partner by the people of Afghanistan, and therefore, India and Qatar have an opportunity to work together. I believe India and Iran would also have an opportunity to work together in Afghanistan. So there are both challenges and opportunities. The second big political development of our times is, of course, China itself. China has essentially become a global power in our lifetime, and it has become the manufacturing center of the world. It has demonstrated that it does not particularly favor India's rise. But China is beginning to slow down. The crackdown on the private high technology, which began late last year, and the problems of real estate and banking sectors, which we are beginning to see now, are now manifest before the world. Can they avoid a 2008 style crisis? And what do I mean by that? That is a financial crisis becoming an economic crisis. The initial signs are perhaps they might. But the era of seamless, easy growth of China to the place of prominence in the world economy has now, I think, begun to change. The COVID crisis, whatever else it has done, has also seriously dented China's credibility, not just among some of its Western critics, but across a wide range of countries in Asia and in Africa. So can China's reworking of global governance and world order succeed? It's an open question, but the slowdown clearly will create new problems to them. And therefore, this is a renewed opportunity for India, and I would say certain other like-minded countries, to step up and play a larger role. India must start by becoming a manufacturing hub, a link in global supply chains, and a major player in the new institutions and structures. We are continuing our search for permanent membership of the UN Security Council, but this has got delayed. It continues to be what we call work in progress. But there are others. If Honorable Suresh Prabhu was here, he would have given us a first-hand account of just how the G20 has worked, with a new set of relationships coming, not with the G7, but what is called the G7 plus, whereby we are a more regular invitee into these councils. The third challenge I'd like to talk about, and opportunity, is in what Dr. Sitaraman started off with. And this is a great reset which is coming about in world affairs. It's under the confrontation created to our normal way of thinking and way of life by climate change, deglobalization, technological disruption, and now post-pandemic adjustment. Climate change is creating new political shocks as the Paris agreements have now given way to what is called the net zero emissions. And there is a need for new energy systems, new feedstocks. But sooner or later, the world is also going to look for newer lifestyles. And here is where I think India has something to contribute. India is, of course, planning a very big thrust in renewable energy. We heard about that from the ambassador. And the gas infrastructure to reduce our reliance on coal. We also have a great potential for the entire value chain of the renewable energy industries, starting all the way from critical minerals. Our lifestyle messages of holistic development and reduction of wasteful consumption, I think will begin to grow, perhaps on the backs of some of our yoga asanas, but maybe we'll leave that for another discussion. But I want to also point out that as what is called ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues, become a priority, so almost today in major corporations, your ESG statement is as important as your profit and loss statement. This is going to require a whole new set of rule setting. And I think here is a place where India could use the expertise of its legal fraternity, expertise of its negotiators to give us a role. The fourth challenge is in the search for new institutions outside the UN and, I said, the Chinese-built structures. And here we have already taken some steps on our own. We created the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and we are expanding them across the world. And these have a natural base, not so much in the global north, but in the global south, the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And these are our priority. But there's also another new set of equations which has developed with what is known as the Quad. And this has a lot of misconceptions about it, but I think it's a grouping with great global potential. And all you need to do is to look at the outcome of the latest Quad summit, which was held in Washington, to understand what I mean. I won't go into the great details. I'll just list out the subjects which this covers. It covers maritime connectivity, which is obvious. And we have added a shipping task force with green hydrogen and improved shipping, a vaccine partnership, pandemic preparedness, climate change, avionics, batteries, space technology, facilitating the creation of technological standards development, biotechnology, semiconductors, future telecom, 5G and SG, 6G. And this will obviously involve public-private partnerships, unlike the Chinese thrust for 6G, which after its crackdown on its tech companies is entirely a state-driven one. So in a sense, it is a new global governance model which may be replicated in other areas of the world. There's another development which has come up in the midst of this, and that's called AUKUS, AUKUS, which was also announced. Now, obviously, we are not involved in this. It's Australia, UK, and US. But it had one interesting feature. It came up just at the time when our Quad summit was to be started up. And so it has clearly advised the world on its own military focus. Hence, I think from a Quad perspective, it's going to draw China's ire away partly from the Quad more onto AUKUS and make clear to the rest of the world that the Quad model is indeed one of wide-ranging global governance. So there are opportunities, and so far so good. But making use of these opportunities will bring us back to what I started with, which is the global economy. And how relevant is India going to be? India will be relevant if the prosperity and security of others is as dependent on India as on their own. And that is the actual example of how other countries have grown and risen in the global governance stakes. So we need to step up economic growth, get back to 9% real growth, that is without inflation and without debt overhang this time. We have the base, we have the startups, we heard about them, but we also have this among the largest number of startup unicorns in the world. We have among the world's largest digital infrastructure today in the UPI and the India stack. And we have huge advantages in demography and democracy. Our weaknesses are still in manufacturing and in expanding trade and integration. And I'll explain this. Even if we grow as we do, by 2024, India could be 15%, that is, India's growth each year could represent 15% of global growth. The entire world's growth, you could be. But if you want to be a locomotive who is pulling others behind you in a governance model, you need to do much more. China, when it launched its major initiatives, was delivering 25% of global growth. And historically, the United States, which was called the locomotive, was close to 20 over a period of time. So that is the kind of model you need to reach. And this will require a much greater integration through trading systems. We know that trade all over the world is in flux, and we, on fairly good and valid grounds, stayed away from RCEP. But we need to look elsewhere. Our trade today still constitutes only 2 or 3% of world trade. And even if we grow it to 8%, as some are projecting, it will still be what China, way behind what China is doing even today, which is around 15% of world growth in trade. So this kind of trade growth means we need to develop all parts of our economy. We have agriculture and we need to develop it because after all, even the digital world needs to eat. We have, as I said, the entire value chain of the new energy systems which are developing, and we need to focus on the minerals which are critical to this area of development. It's perhaps not so well known, we share geology with Australia and with Southern Africa, and they get 8% of their GDP from their mineral industries. We get barely 2%. We have demography and skills. After all, even artificial intelligence and virtual reality will need skilled people. So there are opportunities for us, and we need to work on them. And for this, we will need partners. I think the WTO model will remain, but we need to look at new groupings beyond the Quad to the APEC, the Comprehensive Agreement on Trans-Pacific Partnership. And on this side, certainly the Gulf region is going to be one of our partners. We know that the Gulf is growing relationships based on its own requirements, which tend to coincide with many of ours in terms of investments, markets, people, trade, new technology, and connectivity. And within the Gulf, I'd like to focus on Qatar in particular as I close and look at the facts. The trade in LNG started when I was there and it's boomed, and it's set to grow even more in the next 2 decades. Because LNG will, whatever else happens in the field of renewable energy, LNG will continue to play a very big role according to the International Energy Agency for at least till 2040. Qatar is the #1 producer and exporter, and India is among the top 3 importers. India is part of flexible supply chains perforce. We have been forced into this by a number of factors, and Qatar has demonstrated during its successful management of a blockade that it has flexible supply sources which are willing to keep it provided. I think this is another opportunity for us to look at supply chain management. Qatar, like India, believes in multi-alignment and strategic autonomy. This is another very important factor. We don't get tied down to exclusivist alliances. Our decision-making remains in our own center and with our partners. Qatar recently held national elections, and as we heard, it is hosting all these global games, so it remains an open and more inclusive society. So I think a Qatar and India dialogue on global governance and on the openness for such global governance is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Wow, what a brilliant speech. Words of wisdom. True words of wisdom. Absolutely clear in his dictum, how he perceived the global administration, as he calls it. And he combined it so well with the economy. And he testified it by correlating, all sort of developments, right from United Nations to the rest of the continents. It's extraordinary. There are 4 questions came to me, and all the questions you answered. This started before you, just to commence your speech, and you answered. The first question was, how can India contribute to global governance? You already answered. What field should India focus on emerging as a global player? You already answered. How can technology be leveraged by India on the global front? Again, you complimented what Dr. Deepak mentioned as well. So I have a question to you. Now, I know 2004 Petronet, when you commenced, I was very much here, and the first consignment went, not only you were in Russell Pond, again you went to Kunj, and you were very much there. Now, the changing energy mix India is going through, now from the LNG consumption, after all, it's only 6%. India has a policy to scale it up to 15% in the next 5 years. Now, how do you see, because it's important that we have to reduce the energy security cost. What sort of mix you see, and what is realistic? Because it's pulling also the overall economic momentum. You're not mapping it in tandem. You have offered I've seen your articles on energy side. I need your wisdom, almost Foreign Secretary.
Well, no, thank you. That's a very specific question. I think, by screening the kind of customers who into groups, those who can afford a quick changeover to a gas-based fuel system or a feedstock system, you have to prioritize them and get it to them. For a large number of Indians, the shift over from the thermal power they're getting from coal or from whatever simple source of energy they get to gas is a very big leap in terms of costs. That's a fact of life. Now, to a point, the government can subsidize it. As you know, we have an LPG subsidy program directed in certain sections of the population, but that's not a workable model for the long run. I think a prioritization by which you grow with the economy, you start with those who can afford it and ensure that they get uninterrupted supply without regulatory hassles. And we have now the common carrier principle for our pipelines. So I think we have started that process. But we need to do this with a very sharp focus on those who can afford it and use it best. Beyond energy as a feedstock for whether it's fertilizers or chemicals or petrochemicals, that's one way to go. The next stage would be to find some ways of blending the costs with the high-end customer with the average customer, till you reach a stage where more parts of the population can actually afford to pay for relatively high-cost gas. I think the factors of convenience, of cleanliness will play in. And as I said, we are used to lifestyle changes and taking a slightly more philosophical attitude. So I think this will play out over a period of time. And I think there is an opportunity here. But right now, we need to focus on every form of energy we can get. I always like the famous repartee, which Dr. Homi Bhabha was asked when he was told, "Don't you think nuclear power is too costly?" And his reply was, "No power is as costly as no power at all."
Very true.
Mr. Ranjan Bhattai, the former Foreign Secretary, for your inputs. It's quite productive. His views on politics and economics is astounding. The views are pure, his experience. Now, he put a challenge to you, Sailesh.
Yeah.
He has said, he has projected now, he extrapolated the economy as well. Now, the real opportunity. Now, how do we get 5 trillion or 6 trillion? Is it realistic? How do we scale up to to the desired level so that we are, economic powerhouse to reckon with in global terms. So let me have the great pleasure of welcoming Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti, the Chairman, Sailesh Haribhakti Associates, and a wonderful corporate governance consultant and a board member of very many very distinguished companies. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sitharaman. And let me express my tremendous gratitude to Doha Bank for inviting me to be on this exceptional panel. Listening to Dr. Mittal and Mr. Ranjan Mathai is an undiluted pleasure for all of us. The learning that I have had today is just extraordinary. Thank you very much, both of you, for creating the context. For me, India is on an exceptional role of the kind that I have not seen in many, many, many years. We have the best performing capital markets. Whether we look at the primary market, where 80,000 crores of fresh issues are slated to happen in the next few months. 80,000 crores. We have a phenomenal secondary market. The Sensex is in kissing distance of 60K, and the National Stock Exchange Index is in kissing distance of 18K. Now, this is absolutely extraordinary. We have a currency which is more or less stable, which has happened because of the extremely astute monetary management that our Reserve Bank of India has done, and the very sensible policies that have been adopted for trade and for generating in the previous quarter an actual current account surplus. We may not be able to sustain it because of the recent rise in oil prices, but to have a current account surplus for India in even one quarter is an amazing performance. And what can I say about growth? We've truly had a remarkable growth momentum. Of course, we came off a very, very low base, but it has been remarkable. To grow in any quarter at 20%, you can feel it. I can feel it sitting in my office, the extraordinary momentum that seems to have developed. People are announcing large projects. The startup world is booming. People are moving out of cushy jobs, becoming entrepreneurs, encouraging whole swathes of new enterprises. And it seems like India is trying to establish its ascendancy as an entrepreneurial country in every which way. The extent of FDI that we have got, we've already spoken about. It's absolutely amazing. We have foreign exchange reserves, as Dr. Sitharaman pointed out, which are very comfortable in terms of covering more than 18 months of our imports. So there is no issue on foreign exchange reserves. Dr. Mittal asked me to briefly summarize the tax reforms, and they have been absolutely remarkable. We've had a complete elimination of retrospective taxation. And I never imagined that the government of India would settle an old dispute in as honorable a manner as they have agreed to do. I think this is remarkable and extraordinary. And we have done this despite the fact that we had tremendous fiscal shortages on account of the extraordinary amounts of money that we had to spend on the pandemic. But even there, I think India did an extraordinary job of not becoming fiscally profligate. What India did is used its food reserves to make sure that food got available. to the entire population of rural India and to all the bottom of the pyramid people who needed to be given that food. That changed the whole picture. We did not have this runaway printing of money, which has happened in many economies. And that's largely because we leveraged our banking system to lend in a proper manner, to create forbearance there. And we mixed the food subsidy in a way that we were able to manage our fiscal climate so much better. Monetary policy has been accommodative. Interest rates in India are at very reasonable levels. And fortunately for us, the message that Indian industry has received is scale down your debt. Go and access debt from the markets. And Indian industry has actually done that. But we are here to discuss how India and Qatar can synergize their operating together as nations which have, again, as Dr. Mittal pointed out, a joining of hearts. And I want to spend 5 minutes on giving 5 ideas which can be groundbreaking and extremely large and speak to India's strengths and to Qatar's strengths. The first is the idea of our moving into the digital world at a pace and at a level. Pace is all right. It is also important to be at a level where we extract extraordinary productivity from digital twinning, as I would like to call it. And that is an expression that I would request all of you to remember. For every entity in any major economy, you need a digital twin to be imagined. And once you've imagined that digital twin, you should create and craft a strategy to make sure that you will at one day become immersed and merge with your digital twin. And this requires a complete change of mindsets, a change of culture, and a change of ability and willingness to invest in this extraordinary technology. Last evening, I was talking to somebody in an extremely quote unquote dirty industry, which is extracting from food wasted oil, usable oil or biofuel. And he was asking me that should I invest in technology? And I said 50% of all your profits should go back on technology. Get involved and immersed in machine learning, artificial intelligence, low code, no code, do analytics. It will transform you. I'll give you the example from rural India. Because of the extraordinary infrastructure of digital payments that India has created, and India is #1 in digital payments in the whole world. We've beaten China. And that has become the platform which has included rural India into this whole digital transformation. So post-COVID, at Larsen & Toubro Finance Holdings, the extent to which we have been able to convert our interaction with rural India, and we are one of the largest players in rural India because we have a huge footprint there, converted it totally to digital. And that is giving us a phenomenal boost in terms of just the efficiency of operations and a lowering of the cost. So my first thought is that India and Qatar should partner in creating digital twins, in bringing in all the technology that will enable you to merge. Second is the idea of making sure that you know everything about your counterparty before you decide to actually transact. Now, to my great pleasure, I should say, we discovered in a company which operates with 20 PhDs out of Ahmedabad that there is so much public data available and footprint available. And this is replicable in any economy. So to replicate what was done out of Ahmedabad for India into Qatar would not be difficult at all. The idea is very simple. Capture the financial footprint company-wise. Use machine learning, use artificial intelligence, use analytics, do some algorithmic thinking, automated algorithms, and you'll be able to red flag issues upfront to make sure that you don't deal with an impaired counterparty. Now, if this cooperation can come between Qatar and India and a replication of this service that is now being used at scale in India, this can be a groundbreaking, game-changing idea for the Indo-Qatar partnering. Third idea is what the tax department in India and the bankers in India have begun to experiment in. Highly replicable idea, which can be greatly and very simply brought to bear on the entire processes in Qatar. So what have the banks done? They have made it possible today for you to use them as your outsourced accounting department. Because if you look at it, the banker has, you do a bank reconciliation. So you do your own accounting, the banker does the mirror image of it, and then you start reconciling. The bankers are now saying that we will be the outsourced accounting department of your company. They're also saying the tax department figured out that if I have an income, it has to be somebody else's expenditure. And they started matching and reconciling this. So last year in India, the filing of returns is no longer required if you have a certain category of income. Your tax will be determined for you. You simply have to pay it and you're done. Now think about extending this to an entire economy, which has been done in one Latin American country. And think about the fact that nobody ever needs to file a return of income. You simply get tax determined. You pay it, and that's the end. Very happy relationship of tax gatherer and taxpayer. This is possible. And this is something worth working towards, whether it is direct tax or indirect tax. And therefore, I would say that these are the areas and areas of this kind adjacent to this that we need to think about in terms of the Indo-Qatar partnering. Also remember that in India, we have this ability to work remotely. We've learned that in the last 2 years. And therefore, it has now become possible to export services of this kind seamlessly. Also think of the fact that you now have almost every major organization moving to the cloud. And therefore, it doesn't matter. It's become completely delocalized. The offering of digital services has been completely disrupted and made seamless. With the application of blockchain, which is the fifth idea that I want to talk about, you can have trade digitalization in a way that has never been done before. Entire trade between India and Qatar needs to get fully blockchain digitized so that all the delays that are happening can be cut off, and you can have a far better supply chain, which will deliver productivity and value. And finally, if you can top all of this up by that natural trust. For the first time, we are seeing, at least in India, and I'm sure that exists in Qatar, that it is no longer public-private partnership. It is private-public partnership which is sought to be done. And that is a tremendous mindset that is happening. Because this world has become a world of collaboration, a world of everybody trusting each other, working together, making sure that the system which is laid out is so transparent and so safe that the handshake is absolutely easy to make. And that's what we need to establish, a very tight handshake between India and Qatar. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shailesh. Again, you connected it so well, and you're in very many corporate boardrooms. You showed clearly the five-pronged strategy and how to enhance the bilateral relationship. It's interesting, the blockchain is a bigger tool across the globe, distributed ledger. Banks are adopting nowadays to make sure that we have private banking, we are using it, treasury, we are using it, trade finance, we are using it. That's a good idea. Digital twins, I'm sure Ambassador will take this note and see the possibilities to see how to connect. The banking side, you suggested well. Tax side, you're right. No more anyone is location centric. That's the positive side of the pandemic. So we can create, not only the business process outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing. You can create a Silicon Valley in every city and villages of India. We have seen there's an entrepreneur, Zoho. He's sitting in his village in Tenkasi in Tamil Nadu, exactly doing the same.
Absolutely. Great example.
Yeah. And that shows the way. He was sitting in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And from there, it's a brave move, but he has showed the way. It is talk of the world today, and you touched upon. And the beautiful summary is on the private-public partnership. Don't expect the government. Government is there to govern, and they will facilitate, and it's you, the private ownership, which should make sure accountability is yours and ensure their overall partnership is built in the support of the facilitation of the government. Interesting and exciting stuff. Now, there are three questions now. I answered two of them. One question I can ask you: how will the Reserve Bank of India now plan to withdraw the monetary stimulus given the Indian economy and the inflation? Are they likely to increase the interest rate? What's your thought?
My own sense is that growth will continue to get precedence over the protection against inflation. And we saw in the last policy announcement that the stance is still accommodated. Maybe the stance will become slightly conservative, but I don't expect a runaway increase in interest rates in the near future. I believe there will be a calibrated change. And what will be attempted is a complete joining hands of fiscal policy and monetary policy. Because a lot of what monetary policy could achieve has been achieved. We now need to bring the fiscal policies to bear upon the growth, improve the infrastructure, reduce delays, get permissions done, move faster. That is the kind of structural change that India is seeking to make. And I see tremendous desire on the part of the government of India to actually put all of this into place. So I don't see interest rates getting onto a runaway increasing spiral.
Interesting thought. The last question, perhaps, I have to ask you. Tell me, what is 2025 looks like? 5 trillion, 4 trillion. Now it's 3 trillion now. With this acceleration, as Honorable Ranjan Mathai has mentioned, how do we stand? We are in acceleration mode, but can we achieve something in the range of 4 to 5 billion $4 to $5 trillion by 2025.
Yeah.
What's your thought?
I see a double-digit growth this year, and I see a sustained 7.5 to 8% growth for the next 3-4 years. Now, with that, you just need to make the calculations. We are at 2.7, 2.8 trillion today. And so if we keep growing at these rates, we will not touch 5 trillion unless there is some very big jump. And that can happen if we can raise significant ESG funds for massive impact, not just small impacts in India. And there are 4 areas in which this can happen. One is building rural homes at scale using 3D printing technology. The other is complete reassignment of land use and bringing in fruit trees into the mix at scale. That can transform rural India and therefore the income generating capacity. Energy transition and establishment of infrastructure for EV vehicles. Now, we know that Ola is going to make 2 million scooters. Now, we will need infrastructure to make sure that they can be recharged on every highway. So the 20,000 kilometers of highway and small roads that are connecting, which are established in India, will need to have all of this put together in order for us to reach 5 trillion. At some point between 25 and 28, we will touch 5 trillion. There is no doubt about that.
Let me ask, I think correlating your question, I should ask Mr. Ranjan Mathai. Now, COP26 is widely anticipated now. It's coming up. Do you see definite chance for India to grab more investment towards green mission? Because we need energy security. At the same time, we need to produce alternates. And India has got consuming opportunities. So what are the steps taken from our side towards COP26? And where do you see India clinching many investment opportunities?
You want me to answer that or Mr. Ranjan Mathai?
Ranjan Mathai, I suppose. Yeah, you can answer it.
Yeah. Please, Mr. Mathai, I would love to hear your views on COP26. It's the most exciting thing for me.
Well,
Please.
I must say this is a bit of a new one for me because I hadn't really thought through a strategy for COP26. But broadly speaking, I think we will continue on the same path with a slight variation this time. What do I mean by the same path? Over the last 5-6 years, we have switched from a defensive mode on all questions relating to, the liabilities and the responsibilities of states and what you are doing, to a more sort of challenging mode, saying we are doing what we are doing and we have been doing it. The responsibility lies elsewhere. But given the fact that we have a role to play, we are going to play it. And that is where the International Solar Alliance and all were so effective in putting that up. I think the real problem which was recreated was the switch from the Paris Accords. Incidentally, we have met most of the targets, most of our national, what do they call them, the national offers which we made have actually been completed. On the renewable energy targets, we are, I think, within a year of achieving what we had said we'll do in 2030, if you include the hydro in the renewable mix. The problem which has arisen is now, quote unquote, ambition. And this ambition is coming from, other quarters who have no knowledge of how societies like ours need space and time to develop and investment funds to develop. So I think Mr. Haribhakti's point, there is an important role for India to convey at COP26 that common but differentiated responsibilities have not been given up. We are willing to work, keeping them in tandem with anything else we need to do. But you need to step up to the plate, you meaning the advanced countries who are the hosts of COP26, to ensuring two things. One is the kind of flows of funds into the the climate change mitigation and adaptation. And second, you need to do your bit so that the common carbon space left to us, the next generation of Indians, isn't going to be, permanently stuck with your overhang. You need to be working a lot faster. You need to throw the ball back a bit into their court. But I think one interesting idea which I've got in today's meeting is definitely that instead of focusing on official fund flows, we can tweak the question of funding of this huge change which is needed to one where the private sector can take a lead. And if there are adjustments which need to be taken in interest rates, in export financing, whatever, the governments of those countries can pick that up so that we reach the kind of targets we can in our time and in our space.
Fabulous. Sir, may I ask a supplementary question, Mr. Mathai? Can we request the Western world to go on to gross zero while we continue to net zero negative or net negative?
Sorry, I didn't hear the full question.
Can the Western world go to gross zero? So no investments which will create a carbon footprint, and we go on net negative.
I think we could do that, but I think what we need is a good intellectual study which would demonstrate A, how this can be done, and B, why it should be done. I'm sure one of our excellent think tanks, we have such excellent people today working on this field, in collaboration if necessary with others in the world. We should do it and have it probably released just before COP26 starts. There's time because a lot of this work, as you know, is already available. It's floating around in different places. All it needs is getting it together.
Fantastic. Good. With this, let me move on to SME Chamber President, Mr. Chandrakant Salake. It's more of a conversation. Thank you for joining. Now, tell me, what is the update in the last 1.5 years? SMEs are suffering a lot because, of course, the government around the world have taken decision to support freebies plus incentives, concessional debt financing, postponement of installments or interest. So how is India responding? What are the policy changes the government has taken? How India will grow in terms of SME?
Thank you, Dr. Sitaraman. It's my immense pleasure, always to attend your program. It's wonderful information shared by Dr. Mathai, Dr. Mittal, and of course my respected friend and our advisor, philosopher Shailesh Bhai. It's rather it's a right time to support, think, and encourage SMEs because Honorable Prime Minister and Commerce Minister have given the target for achieving the $400 million for $1 billion exports and $2 trillion exports in that 2030. So this is a very challenging task, and since we are talking about particular segment, Dr. Mathai, I met from the I think 2002 or 2003 in Qatar, and later on in UK, France, again in UK. During that time discussion and today's discussion, I found that we have to focus more on how we can explore different type of activities. Looking at the this current scenario in India, SME sector learn many things. So many things during this pandemic. First of all, Atmanirbhar, they become a self-confident. Number two, banking sector came ahead with the proper setup with the support and the giving proper handholding to SME sector. And most importantly, SME sector in India become a very, very digital savvy and advanced technology savvy. They adopted technology for not only just productivity but services, efficiency, and encouraging the most of the entrepreneurs for particularly to compete with not local market, the global market. Coming back to the point, the Dr. Mittal has mentioned about, what are the opportunity and how we can take. So rather, I suggest, because Dr. Mathai has a vast experience working in a different segment, leading our foreign ministry also. My suggestion is, how we can connect, how we can develop more business opportunity in Qatar, through Qatar, in a nearby countries. Because most of the, I think Dr. Sitaraman, you asked a question about Afghanistan. So we can think about, because there is a unrest now, but we can think to develop or more business activity. Other, I had seen the current bilateral trade between India and Qatar. I think deficit is there, where we can focus on manufacturing industry. My SME Chamber of India, representing 90% manufacturing industry in India. Also, I'm the founder and president of Federation of Indian SME Associations, where more than 6,800 SME associations from local to state, national level are connected with us. So, Dr. Mittal, this is a very, very good support will be from the local associations for developing, connecting, and encouraging SMEs to go global. And this is the right time, with under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister. We are focusing more manufacturing industry. We are inviting more manufacturing industry to set up in India. Rather, my chamber has taken initiative to set up the industrial park, especially for SME sector, SME industrial high-tech park, SME innovation park, SME productivity park, because there is a lot of opportunity. So what we can do, we can explore more business opportunity. We can make a bridge, and of course, Doha Bank is there to fund. SME should not go to any knocking the door. We have a platform. And other Dr. Sitaraman, Manish, both are encouraging regularly our organization. Bring SMEs, bring entrepreneurs, bring companies. Those are having an opportunity. Those are having a support. Those are looking for support. So I will not take much time, but my suggestion will be, let us make one bridge between India and Qatar, where we can connect SMEs, because SMEs do not think that our Indian SMEs are smaller SMEs now. They are also becoming big. We can't produce the Dhirubhai Ambani now, but we can produce the small and medium entrepreneurs for competing with China. China is on the slowdown. This is the right time. And this is the right time to knock the door of the global market. I'm sure that with your vast experience, Dr. Sitaraman, with vast experience of Dr. Mathai, and of course, Shailesh Bhai there, and Dr. Mittal, you can play a very important role to bring us together, bring us connect with a different segment. And of course, this will be a unique opportunity for my SME Chamber of India to work with you and to execute the ideas what we discussed today, and what Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Commerce Minister, and Honorable Finance Minister is giving a level playing field for not only India, but in a global market. Thank you.
In fact, the Commerce Minister of India, Piyush Goyal, as well as the Commerce Minister here, Mr. Ali Al Kuwari, they both had a conversation on the very subject. Now, I suggest strongly that you should actually, it's a bilateral opportunity. As Excellency Ambassador has mentioned, you have free zones, big opportunity. They are committed for 3 billion Qatar riyals. Small and medium-sized entrepreneurs should come and set it up here. We can create a global gateway, and we can, cost of capital is cheaper, debt as well as equity getting supported, cost-effective labor you can bring in from India, and create a gateway for the Indian small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. We'll discuss. Let me move on to my part. Perhaps I have to connect this in the next 15 minutes. So based on the conversation what I had, I summed it up to see the synergies and make sure the audience gets the pulse of the whole conversation. And the takeaways are very many. And let me move on to my structured presentation. Let me start 7 to 8 minutes clips. And then if there are time left out, we will go for additional questions. Still, there are 6 or 7 questions and answer. So the purpose of the session is to recognize the global economies. You heard from everyone what's happening around the world. Mr. Ranjan Mathai, similarly Shailesh, and what's happening in Qatar economy. From Indian perspective, Dr. Deepak Mittal has already outlined Indian economy itself was well elucidated by Shailesh Haribhakti. And let's look at the bilateral opportunities. To sum it up on the global scene, The global growth was a contraction last year. Nobody can deny it. Economic indicators for 2021 was revised 4 times. One in October last year during the IMF meeting, which was virtual. Second time is in January. Third time again in the April spring meeting, that is physical. And again, when it comes to July, they have revised downwards based on the development, including vaccination. Now, let me move on straight to IMF. IMF says the global growth is going to be 6%. Advanced economies have moved from 5.4 to original prediction to 5.6 now, simply because they are administering faster pace the vaccines. Emerging markets, which is originally projected indications were there up to 6.6, 6.7%, now revised downward to 6.3%. Now, US is still lingering on its the overall economic momentum. They have to take the debt ceiling issue on hand. The Congress has cleared it, but the Senate has to clear. They're still in limbo. And look at what Janet Allen has to say as well as
our asset purchases have been a critical tool. They helped preserve financial stability and market functioning early in the pandemic, and since then have helped foster accommodative financial conditions to support the economy. At our meeting that concluded earlier today, the committee continued to discuss the progress made toward our goals since the committee adopted its asset purchase guidance last December. Since then, the economy has made progress toward these goals. If progress continues broadly as expected, the committee judges that a moderation in the pace of asset purchases may soon be warranted. We also discussed the appropriate pace of tapering asset purchases once economic conditions satisfy the criterion laid out in the committee's guidance. While no decisions were made, participants generally view that, so long as the recovery remains on track, a gradual tapering process that concludes around the middle of next year is likely to be appropriate.
That's the point. The tapering will start. The monetary policy, which was eased at zero interest, and the bond buying program now is going to be contained gradually. In between, they got into US debt ceiling. That is another issue which, listen to the Treasury Secretary.
It is imperative that Congress address the debt limit. If not, our current estimate is that Treasury will likely exhaust its extraordinary measures by October 18th. At that point, we expect Treasury would be left with very limited resources that would be depleted quickly. America would default for the first time in history. The full faith and credit of the United States would be impaired, and our country would likely face a financial crisis and economic recession as a result. It's necessary to avert a catastrophic event for our economy. Senators, the debt ceiling has been raised or suspended 78 times since 1960, almost always on a bipartisan basis. My hope is that we can work together to do so again and to build a stronger American economy for future generations.
That's important. The global growth is contingent on many countries, predominantly the United States, has to play its role. The trillions of dollars have been planned for the infrastructure creation. That has to happen. So essentially, that's the trigger. Now, bipartisan basis it comes through, then you can see the world at large takes its momentum as we envisage. That's the first point. Second, again, we need to understand Qatar economy is in the right direction. That's the economy we are in now. And COVID is well managed. We had around 237,000 cases. And it was very, very well vaccinated. We have eligible population, nearly 85% vaccinated. Total population around 77% vaccinated. Deaths is around in the range of around 605, 606. But what is more important is to recognize the Qatar economic momentum, as His Excellency Ambassador has mentioned. It's not confined to the 2022 FIFA World Cup alone. We have hydrocarbon growth as well as non-hydrocarbon growth. Both are synchronized in the medium and long term. So that's the beauty. Now, into economic terms, if I look at numbers, India is, at least this quarter was a current account surplus. Qatar will end up in current account surplus the fiscal surplus is likely to be there because the oil price was, when we decided the budget, it was $40 last year by this time. Now, the average oil price is now around 65.6 the first half. Still, today, Brent is 81. If the output is not eased, it's still an issue within the OPEC definition, compliance architecture. The oil price even may touch $100 per barrel. So, Qatar economic momentum, purely from Qatar perspective, because even natural gas long-term contracts are all indexed to oil price. That's the issue. Qatar's budget, if you look at it in specific terms, revenue is 160, taking oil, as I said, $40. Expenditure is 195. There was deficit. It's going to be a surplus. Healthcare, education, and again, infrastructure are all well set. Now,
Climate change remains one of the most critical challenges of our time. It brings disastrous impacts on all aspects of life for the current and future generations. Thus, we must continue our joint efforts to counter those effects. We look forward to the upcoming United Nations COP26 to be held in Glasgow, in the United Kingdom, to be a turning point towards realizing the ambitions of the international community. In this regard, the state of Qatar has placed climate change at the forefront of its priorities, adopting the necessary measures to develop climate change-related technologies and clean energy. We will present all such measures at the conference next November.
So Qatar's economic progression, social progression again, environmental side, there's a commitment, even though this per capita emission is maximum. But there is a definite mapping done. And that's what the global momentum is all about. COP26 is going to focus on it. India is also, I'm sure, will have their say in the United Nations. What the Prime Minister has mentioned, I'll outline in a minute. But the issue remains, that's a very, very important, defining moment, I should say, in the current context. Banking system is stable. If you look at the lending growth, first 8 to 9 months, we have done around 9% lending growth. Government sector's borrowing is around, most around 10%. Real estate, 5%. Consumption, retail side around 6%. Contracting sector is around 7%. And services around 9%. Trading is growing at a pace of 6%. Deposit mobilization is around 6%. So Qatar's economic momentum is not in that distress. Now, Qatar's central bank has extended the incentives up to September. It was there up to last week. Last Thursday, on 30th September, they have extended the installment postponement as well as interest postponement, even up to December. And that's where it stands. They are aware of new currency notes. That is also useful. And when it comes to hydrocarbon development, we are moving in the right direction. Now, we are going to move from 77 to 110, North Field East, and then 10 to 126, North Field South. Qatar planning for nearly $40 billion worth of project specifics on this side. They mobilized already over $12 billion through public debt. Qatar Petroleum has issued debt issuance, which is moving, which was well subscribed, I should say. So overall, if you look at the economic momentum, it is in the right direction. Trade side, we have seen trade has tripled compared to last year, but essentially in the right direction. The Qatar port has been very busy. The blockade brought self-sustenance to Qatar. Now, we used to use Jebel Ali as a transitory port. Now, September 5th, 2017, we had a different story to augment. Now it is in full swing. The airport or seaport is in perfect combination to have the cargo in tandem, achieving its maximum efficiency. Qatar 2022 is talk of the world and the first Arab country to host. Watch this short clip.
Especially considering that we're coming out of COVID-19, I genuinely believe it'll be the first global celebration where we will collectively have overcome COVID and we'll collectively be able to celebrate this tournament and create a lasting bond. And that's why I think it's when I always thought it was previously significant, I believe the significance has become even more.
As simple as that. Its significance is even more. Sustainable journey. That's what exactly they captioned it. And Indian company Lawson Tubro is building a stadium now with 40,000 seaters. It's costing around $360 million. And a lot of opportunities for infrastructure creation in the coming days as well. Qatar had a fully vaccinated flight. Ahmad International Airport has been well set in terms of the overall infrastructure, state of the art, the social distancing or hygiene. They maintain the highest efficiency. So things are in the right direction. Indian economy, already Mr. Sailesh has explained. I don't want to elucidate further. But what is interesting is to hear from the Prime Minister.
During the last 7 years, India has brought over 430 million people who were previously unbanked into the banking system. Today, over 360 million people who earlier could not even imagine this was possible now have insurance coverage as security. By giving over 500 million people the facility of free treatment in hospitals, India has given them access to quality health services.
So that's more important. Again, watch.
The scalability of our tech solutions and their cost effectiveness are both unparalleled. Over 3.5 billion transactions are taking place every month in India through our Unified Payment Interface, UPI. India's vaccine delivery platform, CoWIN, offers digital support to register the administration of millions of vaccine doses in a single day.
I was told, I thought around 100 million vaccines a month we are producing. His Excellency Ambassador has mentioned to me it is going to be 300 million. That's extraordinary. So we have bigger opportunity to support the humanity. And that is moving. Climate change is on.
I'm sure that you all also feel proud of the efforts made by India with regard to climate change compared to those made by big and developed nations. Today, India is moving forward with great speed towards its target of 450 gigawatts of renewable energy. We have also started work on making India the world's largest green hydrogen hub.
That's interesting. On the monetary policy, Mr. Sailesh has already outlined there may not be an interest rate hike. If at all, it will be gradual. And there are very strong economic fundamentals to support this. Food price inflation will be contained. That's the impression I got from his conversation. And again, fiscal side, we have reasons to believe that's well managed. And the focus is on the healthcare side. A huge amount of budget allocation has been done. And 137% year-on-year rise in the budget allocation towards healthcare. On the bilateral side, on the specifics, we'll come to the bilateral relationship during COVID-19. This is what I see it interesting. In the March, transport minister of both the countries and the representatives have met as a virtual summit. That's getting aligned. When it comes to the Deputy Prime Minister, he also participated on the Raising conference. The naval ship
I'm pleased to share that the Indian naval ship Trikand, which was deployed for Operation Samudra Setu 2, arrived this morning at Mumbai with 2 liquid medical oxygen filled containers, each of 20 metric ton capacity. The ship, whilst mission deployed along with other Western Fleet units, was pressed into national tasking for shipment of liquid medical oxygen containers and associated medical equipment from various countries. The ship entered Hamad Port, Qatar on 5th of May 21 and embarked the maiden shipment of oxygen containers, which was facilitated by the French mission as part of Oxygen Solidarity Bridge to support India's fight against COVID-19 pandemic.
That's a good gesture from Qatar.
Well, we have a very close relationship with India, and we are always there for helping countries in the subcontinent. We have a very long-standing economic and political relationship with India, and it is our culture in Qatar Airways to always be there to our friends in time of their need.
So tell me what you're doing exactly to help.
We are sending 3 freighters tomorrow, nose to tail, 1 to Delhi, 1 to Bangalore, and 1 to Mumbai, with medical aid supplied by suppliers and donated by Qatar Airways. And this is not the only 3 aeroplanes that we are going to send. We are very open to the entire world to send aid to India, which will be carried free of charge by Qatar Airways. And both aircraft will leave the day after tomorrow.
Right. What kind of aid is going to be in these shipments?
Everything. There is medicines, there is oxygen cylinders, there is medical equipment, ventilators, and so on and so forth. Everything that is required desperately by the Indian people, we are transporting on our freighters to them.
That's what it is. That's true friendship. And we have reasons to believe Qatar and India focus on trade and investments to build resilient supply chain to deal with the food and health security. Joint working group, Ambassador has mentioned, between Qatar and India on the field of health. Direct shipping lines are in multifold now increasing very well. Institutions in Qatar and India have increased to strengthen the overall bilateral partnership. And science or maths or agriculture or research or innovations, we can explore the possibilities, and we'll also bring in more of SMEs together. Now, on the FDI side, we need to scale it up. India has got bigger opportunities, and Ambassador has been taking initiatives. There is this Qatar Investment Authority is setting up an office in India. Their designated officer is sitting in Singapore, overseeing the Asia Pacific region, and we see as a bigger opportunity in the coming days. Now, Qatar has got a lot to offer to Indians to come in here as well. Qatar investment law has been redefined. Public-private partnership law has been, again, set to new economic momentum. Property laws, expatriates can invest freehold or leasehold, depending upon the benefits you seek, the healthcare and education, or otherwise. So you have an opportunity to be a resident here, permanent resident. Qatar as an investment destination, a lot of liberalization practice have happened. Listing is going to be between 2 exchanges a possibility. Qatar is opening up foreign ownership. Limit is 100%. Institution like Doha Bank, we have moved from 49 to 100%. So foreign owners can invest. And food security has been the major thrust. That's going in the right direction. Qatar FinTech and India can come together. So all the possibilities are there for us to see through. And as Excellency has mentioned on the Qatar Financial Center, that again, redefined in terms of 100% ownership. We have reasons to believe that we will welcome from India's side, as well as Qatar's side, the partnership as a professional intermediary, as a financial sector, service provider, I should say. We will facilitate whether big corporate or small corporates from both sides to come and do business and enhance the overall value stream. We also have here, we have Qatar Business Startup, that incubators are being supporters as well. So Qatar Development Bank is there, Doha Bank is there, or even other commercial banks are there to support you on the debt side. Equity can come from Qatar Development Bank. So plenty of opportunities India should explore. This is a common request I make both for the Qatari side as well as Indian side to strengthen further. There are three of my colleagues are also standing. I wanted to say, as now Namit or Ritesh, on the trade finance side, how we can support small and medium size industries or big corporates. Can you explain quickly?
Yeah, thank you, sir, and good afternoon to all distinguished guests and participants. Doha Bank being present on both sides with Qatar and full-scale operations in India, I think we can support the bilateral trade in multiple forms and ways, or I would say we can support in all forms since it's both sides we have full-scale operations. While the trade numbers and existing areas as well as potential areas has already been covered, I'll go straight to some broader level product side, how we can bilaterally support the trade. For example, exports from Qatar, which will be equivalent to imports into India. We from Qatar side on the export side, we can do export LC confirmations, we can do export collections, we can do export financing, bill negotiation. Likewise, with branch in India, they can cover the import leg of the supply chain with LC opening, import financing, buyer's credit. So similarly will be the same case if the situation is reversed and India can handle the exports in case of exports from India. So in overall, with full-scale operations on both sides, I think we can provide the full end-to-end solution to the supply chain, and we are very well positioned to cover this from Qatar, as well as our operative branches at Dubai and Kuwait and Abu Dhabi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And on the investment side, Mr. Gudni still holds. My head of treasury investment is here. Gudni, briefly, can you say what is in store?
Yeah, good afternoon. There's actually a lot of things in store here in Qatar. And if we look at the economy through the lens of an investor, the Qatar economy has a lot to offer. It is, as we discussed today, it's a very robust economy for investors to come in and invest in, both on the equity side and the fixed income side. But it's also, and more importantly, it's also supported by a very strong fundamentals, which crystallizes in the strong credit rating of the government. And that should not be omitted. For somebody who wants to invest in Qatar and wants to do it easily and quickly without too much legwork, we are offering an equity linked product, effectively an index linked fund that replicates the return of the Qatar stock exchange. It's called QETF. That can be bought by locals and foreigners as well. It gives the exposure to the 20 biggest companies in Qatar. That is a product we are selling here in Doha Bank in cooperation with some of our partners, and it's something that both small and large investors can easily access.
Right, interesting. Now, Maya, I hope you're there. How can we support loan or overdraft or bill discounting or bill purchase for the Indian companies in the current context?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, we can support them, like my colleagues had said, Namit and Gudni, through the fact that we both have full-fledged operations in both countries. We are able to strongly support them in terms of financing, in terms of account openings. We, through our vast and strong client base, we can even put them in touch with potential investors and potential partners, suppliers, and help them in support them in anything that they would need, whether through financing through funded lines or non-funded lines, whether it's discounting of LCs, whether it's discounting of invoices. We have no limit to the types of facilities that we can support them with.
Andre, from bank-to-bank side, how do we, Indian banks, how we can come to you?
It's a very good question, sir, and thank you very much for the opportunity and welcome to everyone. We obviously, being in India ourselves, we have an excellent interaction with the local banks already. With our vast network across the world, we definitely have an advantage of offering this products and services to our clients in Qatar and in India. But I think regardless of our presence and supposedly our competition amongst the local banks, there's such a large scope for us to interact more with the local banks and their presence across the globe in terms of working together. We've got appetite for all the international financial institutions, and so there's a lot of scope to interact and to share risk with each other, and just to do more trade with the region. We also need to establish ourselves, and we are in that position to be the one-stop shop for investors and for banks in the GCC. So we are well placed to do that, and my colleagues have already explained of what we can do on this side. So there's such a great opportunity for us to work closer together, share business, and yes, we are in competition, but we can also together we can even grow our business together and expand our exposure with each other and be a global bank to our clients.
We do participate on the debt issuance on many of the local banks. We have we have taken additional tier 1 or regular debt, senior debt or subordinate debt, bank placements. We can still support. We do have India country limits. We can scale it up. And,
absolutely.
Whichever we can. Questions. I have to close the event because we have 17 questions still unanswered, including Sailesh Bhai. There's a question for you. GST side, I don't think I can bother you on the micros. And the next question is, when India is going to issue dollar bonds, why the Indian government is not issuing dollar bond? Question to Sailesh. Sunesh Shukla is asking, can we create an understanding between two countries and get expert think tank and launch business in both countries? That's what exactly Indian ambassador has been trying to do, to bring the business group together. We need to do that as early as possible. And Madam Afai has got 4 questions. For want of time, I have to say we will respond to you by mail. It is a interesting session of senior enthusiasm viewers. We have all of other commitments. Mr. Chandrakant has got other appointments we already mentioned. And the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Ranjan Mathai, His Excellency Indian Ambassador, Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti, all are, they have given their best to share their views. The subject of this caliber, and these two countries can further deliberate it for hours, I'm sure. Definitely, I will try to answer most of your questions by mail. Meanwhile, I just want to Mr. Manish Mathur to propose a vote of thanks. You're on mute.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. Thanks, sir. And we would like to really thank all our panelists for today, for speaking and sharing their insights with the audience at the event. Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for giving us a good overview of how the government is approaching the Indo-Qatar relationship and highlighting that it starts at the top. And I think the relationship between the leaders has been excellent. And the focus is to primarily diversify the relationship into other areas. And towards this end, the governments are looking at establishing joint task forces and working groups to drive other areas where we can collaborate. Thank you, Dr. Mathai, for giving us a good overview of the global economy evolving developments, and essentially highlighting how India could actually leverage its status as a democratic and a multilateralist and non-interfering growth economy to drive global governance, and how Qatar-India dialogue could actually help in this process. Thank you, Mr. Haribhakti, for giving us a good overview of the financial markets and highlighting the strong growth that India has been experiencing, and the 5 ideas that you gave on how we can sort of accelerate the relationship and transform the Indo-Qatar relationship going forward. Most of it is obviously related to the leveraging of the digital technology to sort of better understand our customers, our counterparts, and deliver a much more 24/7 and a seamless service to our customers. So thank you for giving your insights on that. And thanks, Dr. Salunke, last but not least, to sort of elucidate what are the key learnings that SMEs have had from the COVID experience we've had over the last 18 months, and how it has made them more resilient, and more looking at digital solutions to sort of service their customers, and also giving us a sense of what support will be required to enable us to sort of fast track the growth of SMEs and make them a much stronger contributor to the Indo-Qatar relationship going forward. So yeah, thanks a lot again for all the panelists for taking out the time and sharing their valuable insights with all of us. And we'd also like to thank the audience as well for logging into the webinar, and we hope that you found this session useful. So we would like to wish everybody to take good care of themselves, stay safe and healthy during the current times, and we look forward to similar events in the future. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Siddharaman. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This was really a fantastic webinar, very well organized, and Dr. Sitharaman, you always excel at bringing everybody and everything together. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manish.
Thank you very much from my side also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be back in Doha.
Yeah, please. Basically, it was Mr. Ranjan Mathai. I invited him it was 2018.
Right.
It's overdue. I hope the pandemic settles down and we can call him as early as possible. I look forward.
I'll be back. No issue. I'll be back as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, sir.